Hello legends, it's update time. In this video, I'm going to take you through the best n8n updates that have come out across the last couple of months. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time diving into the chat trigger node, as well as some other nodes that are related to this. Really interesting stuff. Then I'm going to spend some time speaking about the AI agent node, giving you some refreshers as well. So not just looking at updates, but other kind of best practices. And then I'm going to be looking very quickly at the webhook node, so the webhook trigger, as well as the n8n form trigger. Very quickly at these last two. Now, just so you know, I am on the latest version of n8n. I'm on 1.106.3, and I'm using the self-hosted community version. So part of my standard workflow for n8n is to actually go into these releases. And I go into here like once every week or once every 2 weeks. I kind of just look at what is coming up next and what has just been released for n8n. So for example, over here, we have the pre-release. This is going to be next week's version of n8n. The typical structure of these updates is you have the bug fixes up top, and then you have the features, the new stuff that's going to be released down the bottom. So if you're not checking this out already, and you don't want to spend too much time kind of going over and getting stuck in the weeds, don't worry about all the bug updates. They are really cool, but come into the feature section and just glance over this stuff. Not every cool feature is posted on as a YouTube video. Not every cool feature is brought to your attention by n8n. So sometimes you just have to come into here and do some digging. And I'm pretty sure you'll find something that's relevant to your workflow that you may not have seen somewhere else. So this is how I get a lot of cool stuff that I notice for myself, from both my videos and from my workflows. So definitely just check out the features. So to bring us back to the canvas, I am really excited to speak about the chat trigger node. Lots of cool updates here. So if we open this up, the first thing I want to show you is let's make this chat publicly accessible. Let's go to the very bottom here and let's go to response mode. Now response mode, let's flick it down and click on streaming. So if you don't know about this already, I bet you might be pretty excited. I'm now just going to get an AI agent node onto the canvas. I'm also going to go to the options, enable streaming, and let's just throw an LLM into here as well. So this means that whenever a customer goes onto your chat widget and they have an interaction, the response is going to be streaming word by word, token by token. If you are in this on the canvas and you try and use it here, generate me a 100-word story. You don't actually get the streaming on the canvas. You only get it when you've got like your chat widget deployed. So that was 100 words, just came as a blob. But let me show you. Let's copy this URL. So we got it publicly available over here. Let's turn the workflow on. Yep, got it. And now I've got my chat widget as a web page over here. And let's just type in generate a 100-word story. And we're going to see the words coming back and streaming to us. So this is really cool because this is exactly what you get from ChatGPT or Claude. When you're interacting with one of these models, you don't actually wait like 5 seconds for the response to be completed before getting it back to you. So yeah, this just opens up possibilities for more real-time conversations via your chat widget. Now I've got a bunch of other stuff that I want to show you for the chat widget, but just quickly on the note of streaming, what is super cool is if you are building, if you're using n8n to support backend processes for different apps that you're building, you also have this respond using streaming. So as long as you have like an AI agent in your node, in your workflow, you can also respond to webhooks by using streaming. So actually a few months ago, I wanted to try and do streaming for my n8n workflows as well, and it wasn't possible. And then some of the people were like posting cool little hacks for how you could possibly use streaming by kind of going into the code node and doing some custom logic into there. I don't know how successful this stuff was. I kind of didn't try it out, but it's so fun that now it's natively available in n8n for both the chat widget experience and also the webhook experience. Okay, so let's get the webhook out of here. Now the next thing I want to speak about is, so over here we see that we have the actual like layout, all the visual stuff that you see for your chat widget. Now we have like a title over here, we have the subtitle, we've got this color, like a dark blue over here. So all the stuff that you visually see, you can actually edit this in n8n. Traditionally speaking, you would actually have to come into here, into like say this document, this guide, and you would have to take the code and embed it in your website if you wanted to access your chat widget on your website. Now, if you want to modify any of the visual aesthetics, all that kind of stuff, you would have to do that by custom coding it into your into the actual deployment on your website. So the first message, hi there, my name is Nathan. The title that we saw, the subtitle, all the different kind of stuff that you could enable. For example, we have streaming option here, but if you want to do file upload, extra security stuff, it would all have to be done through the code. And then if we went to the very bottom here, you have the CSS, so like the custom styling. Basically all the elements on that chat page, all this kind of stuff here, like the styling of this top bar, of the coloring of these little bubbles of the messages that are sent, all that kind of stuff could be edited over here by editing the custom CSS. So the cool thing is you can access all those settings from within this node. if we go down into here where we have options, if I go to add field, everything you see here is basically full control over your chat widget deployment. So all you need to do is write a very basic script to basically show that hosted widget on your website. Once you do that, you don't have to go back into your website, into the code and edit anything else. You can change everything from here. So you could enable file uploads. You could, for example, require a button to click and start the chat. So I'm going to turn that on. And I'm also going to change the button, the actual button text that starts the chat to say, "Hi Bart." So now all you have to do is just save this. Once it's saved, go and refresh your page, for example, the widget. And now I have the button to start the conversation that I just changed from the node settings. And now I can actually interact with the chat as well. And over here, I have that file upload button that I just enabled. All right, and for our next update, so we're all used to having the chat experience for our widget exactly like this, where you have like your input node where you get the message from your customer via the chat widget. It then goes to your AI agent, it generates a response and sends it back to your customer. And then from here, your user will gonna go back into here, send the next message, you reply, send the next message and reply. So it's a very kind of static experience. A recent update for n8n now allows you to have more dynamic experiences where you can actually build out an entire workflow to manage a conversation with many workflows, with many paths. You can bring human in the loop, you can do all that kind of stuff. So let me just show you what I mean. So we have our chat trigger node, and then we also have this new node, which is respond to chat. So the respond to chat is our way of pushing another message into the chat widget without having to wait for a customer response if we don't want to wait for a response. So to enable this, we just have to go back into our main settings where we have over here streaming mode. I'm just going to say using response nodes. Okay, so now within this respond to chat, I can just say hi there. And instead of waiting for a user to reply, I'm going to immediately send another message. So let me just change this workflow, bring this into here, and I'm going to say, how are you? And I'm not going to wait for a reply. So this is just going to be a very basic demo to show you that you get 2 messages onto the canvas in quick succession. Okay, I'll refresh our page, and now I'm going to say hello as the end user, and we're going to get our first message that says hi there, and then another one that's going to say how are you? So 2 messages sent to us onto the into the widget without us being able to reply as an end user. So the cool thing about this is that you can have really dynamic chat experiences. So you can imagine kind of like something like voice flow, where you're able to send multiple little messages at one time to make it seem like it's a bit more of a real conversation. You can start a new chat, you can say, hi there, how can I help? Let's say the user responds to us. So we have wait for user reply, which means that the user messages in, then we respond back to the user, and then we respond back again to the user, and now they can message back into here. So that's super cool. They don't have to message at the very first chat trigger node. They can come back into the workflow at this exact spot. So that's the biggest thing about this. Then over here, you can have like an LLM step to understand. Okay, let's go to AI. And let's say we have like a basic LLM chain. And this is going to understand what the query is about. And then whatever the query is about, you can kind of distribute it to different workflows. So you might have one workflow for customer support going up into here, a separate workflow going into sales, a separate workflow going into marketing, a separate workflow going into returns. Very cool, very dynamic. And you can just keep using these respond nodes. Respond to chat. So then now, instead of your AI agent just responding by itself, you just plug that response into one of these respond to chat nodes. So very, very cool. You just kind of pull the response from here, and that's going to be displayed to the end user. So yeah, very cool setup. If you want to see a deep dive into creating a really cool chat experience, let me know in the comments below. But now let's kind of simplify this canvas and let's move across to the AI agent. So I want to bring this over here, make it a little bit easier for us to start working. So the first thing is, let's go into the settings. We have a fallback model. So a fallback model is not your primary model, and it's only used when your primary model fails. So let's bring a fallback model onto the canvas. So what are some reasons why your primary model might fail? Well, some basic reasons are you don't have enough credit on your account, you don't have automatic billing, you go into the negative for your OpenAI account, and then your AI tries to run, doesn't have any credit, and it falls back to your Anthropic model where you hopefully do have credit. Another use case for this is maybe you are normally dealing with like small requests. You're using GPT-4o Nano over here, so like a smaller model for much faster responses. But if the response that you get from the user or whatever you have to process like exceeds the token limit of the 4o model, maybe you have the 4.1 as the fallback to process that larger request. So that's how you would use the fallback model. Now, another thing that you might be already across is the multiple LLM selector. So I made a deep dive video on this already on my channel, but at a high level, this just gives you the ability to dynamically switch between 2 models all the way up to 10 models. I actually don't really recommend using this node, but just to show you how it works, you would have a rule where you would show your first model is going to be used And I'm gonna generate a variable over here at the start of the workflow. So I'm just using that as a placeholder. But if the placeholder variable of model equals 1, we will use model 1. And our next rule is we will use model 2 if our variable equals the number 2. So then all we need to do here is put these models onto the canvas. So I'm going to go OpenAI for model 1 and Anthropic for model 2. And the way that you kind of use this is at the very start of this chat experience, let's bring an edit fields. We're just going to create a new field called model, or a new variable called model. And I'm going to set this to 1. So I'm going to try and run this, but it's actually going to break my agent because I need to map the new variable for my agent. I'm just going to say hi there. Okay. So basically, this was initially relying on the chat trigger input because it's not the very first node that's connected here. Because we actually placed a edit fields between the chat trigger and the AI agent, we have to now kind of call on that variable manually. So in my chat trigger, I'm going to go input, place it into here. And I'm going to run this again. It's going to break my system because now I need to access this variable within this node. So I just need to push that data all the way down into here. So, okay, there we go. Now I can change this variable and bring in the model dynamic variable into our settings. And then same thing over here. Let's bring it into here. Done. So now if I say, let me just bring this up. If I say hi, it's going to choose model 1 and use the OpenAI model. If I change this to be 2 and I say hi, it's going to use model 2, which is the Anthropic model. There we go. So really, if you want to build this out, you might actually do something where, for example, you have an AI step between here, and the AI step just categorizes what is the intent of the ticket. So you might have a text classifier, and you might just say, choose option 1 if it's for sales, choose option 2 if it's for support, and choose option 3 if it's for returns. And let's describe this. Choose this if it's relating to a sales query, choose this if it's relating to a customer support query, and choose this one if it's relating to a returns query. So from here, you would just map all these different outputs into different set fields blocks. So for example, here I'm going to say sales will map my model to use as model number 2. So now if I go into the text classifier, let's just finish setting it up. So the chat input is going to be the text to classify. The model is going to be, we have over here the OpenAI chat model. And then now if I say, hi, I need a hand with purchasing a product, it's going to classify through my sales route. It's going to choose model number 2 and then generate me a response via the agent. Okay, so now let's take a look at the AI agent. So looking at some of the options down here, the first is that we can automatically pass through binary images. So before, when we used to pass in a binary image into the AI agent node and it was processed via this agent node, it wouldn't actually be available on the right-hand side. So we had like a rest of a workflow, we wouldn't be able to re-access that image. But now with this setting, we are able to just directly pass it through. So you can process it and pass it through. Now, another cool node that I've been using is this return intermediate steps. So to explain that, I'm actually going to go and go across to this tools node. So one that you guys have definitely seen is that you can now use an AI agent as a tool. I actually haven't seen a really good use case to use an agent as a tool for another agent. If you have a good one, please comment that below. I'm actually all about separation of concerns. I love using one LLM for one task at one time. And then I'd probably have like some kind of parallel system that would just run that different task via a different agent that's not in the same environment. But anyway, just to show you how this works, you can still attach your chat model over here. You have the same kind of input, so you have memory and you have tools as well. The main thing that you do not get access to here is the fallback and retry mechanism. So all this stuff, like if this fails, you actually have to use the parent agent to manage all that. And you can manage all that by either trying to reprompt it to like retry on fail. But really you have to go into the hardware side of things and then retry on fail using something like this. So if anything fails with the sub agent, just like if anything fails with any other tools that you're using for your AI agent, you will retry that on fail. This is a pretty good solution, like a starting solution to retry any failures. And then, yeah, that's basically it. So your agent has the ability to, you have a user prompt. You also have the ability to add a system message. So just like the regular agents that we're used to, you can put in a specific request for this agent to process, and then you set of instructions by which the agent follows to process that request. If you go to decide by AI model, then your parent agent will be able to feed that into here dynamically. And then you can execute whatever commands you want on this side by using the parent agent. So that's really, really cool. Now, if we come back into here, so at the start of this, just before I spoke about return intermediate steps. So I actually had a workflow that I built out for someone that had a super base, a vector store. So we were using Pinecone. Okay, so I was just using Pinecone, and I was using a regular HTTP call. So I just had something like this, and my Pinecone API call was using the agents API for Pinecone, which meant that all I had to do was send a natural language request, and then the agent API endpoint would just take that request, would vectorize it, return a bunch of results. Now, I actually wanted to see the the health of my system, but when I executed this AI agent node, even though this went off to Pinecone and it got me like 3 results back from the Pinecone agent, it just aggregated these 3 results into one result, and then it gave me some output over here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to access any of the information here. But if you go into return intermediate steps and you turn this on, then alongside the actual agent response that you get from here, you also get all the data from like all the different tool calls. So that meant that every time I actually used one of my agents to generate a response from my Pinecone vector store, and if I had like 3 results returned, I could get all those 3 results, put them into my database, and then kind of compare them against the data that I uploaded, so all my FAQs. Now, just give us a refresher on some of the retry mechanisms. So we looked at the retry over here. One thing that I would recommend you do for your workflows is to do a continue using an error output. So actually this I think is super, super cool, because when you're building out AI agent systems or even like n8n workflows, as the builder and the owner of that system, you have to now be a manager of that system. So imagine you actually just hired another human to take on this responsibility. So instead of an agent, you actually hired someone. You would have to train them up. You would have to touch base with them every single week to make sure that firstly, do they have all the latest information? Do we have any new products? We need more training for them. What is their work output like? Do they need any assistance to kind of like keep getting better? If they weren't doing a good job, you might let them go. If they were doing a good job, you might give them more responsibility. So by building these things out, you actually have to also be responsible for the performance, and you have to act like a manager. So how do you make your life easier as a manager? Well, it's by using like these error outputs. If anything fails in this really dynamic step, which is this AI agent node, if anything fails here, I think it's like mission critical for you to understand why it's failing so that you can fix it. So a very easy thing that you could do is just go to this stop and error node. And this just basically stops the entire workflow if it fails at this AI agent step and throws an error that you can then catch in another workflow. So cool thing about this is you can put a custom message into here. And let's say your workflow has like 3 AI agents and you want to very quickly and simply be able to check which agent has failed. You can just mark this as agent 1 and have that as the custom error message. And if you have agent 2 and agent 3, use that as the custom error message as well. So the way that you actually configure this is you start by going to a brand new canvas. And now that we have that stop and error node, we can now get an error trigger. So basically, whenever that node throws an error out, it's going to be caught into this trigger. And from this trigger, you can then like log the error in a database. Or sometimes I actually just plug this into like a Twilio node and send an SMS to myself. So if it's like a really high urgency, really high impact workflow that I'm working with, I will like send an SMS and I can see really quickly like in real time what's going on. Or you can plug it into like Gmail or Slack or whatever. So, and now from here, you would just go into your workflow. You would change your workflow name to something like error workflow-2. Then it's already saved. You go back to your original workflow. Let's just refresh this. And then we go into the settings of this workflow. And now where it says error workflow, we would just change this to error workflow number 2. And now that means that whenever this stop and error node sends out an error message and it kind of stops this workflow, it's going to be caught by this trigger and then it's going to run our error workflow. Okay, so that's everything for the AI agent for now. I want to show you a couple more things. So let's go across to the form trigger node. So this is actually part of, I think, the most recent update of n8n. But just like earlier in the video, how I mentioned, the chat trigger, once you deploy the actual widget onto your website, you can come into here and change all the different configurations. Actually, some of the most recent updates for both this chat node and that form node is that you can actually edit the custom CSS directly from within this panel. So all those different elements, yes, can be changed, like the coloring of stuff, the different window sizes, window dimensions, the basic layout, all that kind of stuff can be edited within this chat trigger node. And also for the form trigger node, the exact same stuff is here as well. So you have now the custom form styling. So this was literally, I think, released for this week. To change the CSS over here, like you could just copy this entire thing, go across to ChatGPT, upload some photos of your website, like take some screenshots of your website and say, can you change the CSS to match, like better match my website? And then it'll just change the CSS, give you this entire code back. You just paste it into here, you hit save, and then your form is updated and it looks like your website as well. So they're actually really cool things to do. Now, the last two updates that I want to quickly show you are if we go into this AI agent space, go into other AI nodes, go into miscellaneous. I'm not going to show you the LangChain code node, but originally in this space, we had the OpenAI section, so all the OpenAI nodes, the chat memory manager, and the LangChain code node. Now we have more natively the Anthropic nodes and the Google Gemini nodes. So for Anthropic, we can analyze documents, we can work with documents, analyze images, generate prompts, which is pretty cool. You can still do custom Anthropic API calls to get more usage out of your Anthropic models. And then you have Google Gemini, so you can actually analyze audio, transcribe recordings. One really cool one that I have here, that I see here, is this one over here, is analyze video. So for example, a really popular customer support use case is if you have a hardware product where you actually need to see like a customer trying to do something with that product. Did they turn it upside down? Did they try and press the button on the on button on the watch to make sure it worked? Or if you have like a software product, you might want to get a snippet recording of the customer trying to log into their account so you can see what's going on. Well, if you get, you can actually build a workflow where you accept that file upload, let's say through a form on your n8n. You can then upload that file into a bucket, for example, on Supabase. And then you can take that file, run it through an analyze video node for Google, and then you can just basically turn that video into a plain text explanation of what the user is trying. You can then take that video and then plug it into a separate AI agent to then review against the troubleshooting steps and then offer some steps in return. So this is actually a really cool workflow using the analyze video. And then you have the generate video as well, which is using the VO2 and VO3 model. So if we go to the model list, we can see VO2 and VO3 as well. All right, guys, and that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching to the end. If you like the format of this video, kind of highlighting all the new stuff, some of the old stuff, let me know in the comments below. And as a final note, if you have aspirations of becoming slightly more technical in your abilities with n8n, different AI tools, or even AI coding, feel free to come by and join my school community. All right, thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.